Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 13, Episode 94. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here on this Wednesday, Steelers Nation. Dave, finally some things to talk about after all this quiet and calm and really just not a lot to discuss on the Pittsburgh Steelers front with the NFL Combine kicking off basically today, but primarily later this week and over the weekend. Omar Khan making the rounds today, speaking to the media in several places. And so finally, some things for us to discuss.
Yeah, .con, right?
How long have you been waiting to say that one?
I don't know. I come up with these things on the fly. Maybe they get a chuckle. Maybe they don't, but yeah, we got a lot to talk about today. Not earth-shattering stuff, I don't think. I mean, I think there's some good takeaways from how many interviews did he do today? He did the media scrum one. He did the one on the podium. He did the one on Pro Football Talk. He did one on Sirius. Seemed like I'm missing one.
Steelers Nation Radio and WPXI.
Yeah. Yes. So, a lot of repeated stuff within there, but there's some topics to talk about nonetheless.
Definitely. Now, Dave and I are recording this on Tuesday night. I'm not entirely sure when this will go up, but if anything crazy breaks after 8 p.m. Tuesday, just a heads up on that. But the bulk of the information coming from Omar Khan today, and I think we had talked about on Monday some of the questions that you would like to ask Omar Khan, and kudos to our Joe Clark, who is there in Indy along with Jonathan Heitritter. It was just Joe today around Omar Khan, Jonathan getting in just a little bit later. And so he did a great job to ask some questions and be there and provide the quotes for us. But one of the things we talked about was Mitch Trubisky's future based off of Art Rooney's comments made last month about how he expects Trubisky to be a Steeler for 2023. Omar Khan essentially echoing those thoughts, saying that he expects and wants Trubisky to be in Pittsburgh in 23, even going further and saying he wants Trubisky to be in Pittsburgh for a long time. And so that's one of the headline things, one of those things we expected Khan to be asked about, and now we have our answer.
Yeah, and it echoes what Art Rooney II said over a month ago, and some plus one, I guess you can say there. At this point, I mean, I don't think there's any question, right? I mean, at this point, it would be a huge shock if Mitch Trubisky is not with this team in 2023 to start with, right?
Right. Just to read some of the quotes that Khan had, he said, quote, "Mitch has been great. It's been great having him, and I look forward to having him around here for a long time." Went on to say a little bit later, "Mitch has been awesome since the day he got here. How he's been with Kenny's been great, and I want Mitch around." So either Pittsburgh has the best poker face and smokescreen we've ever seen from the Steelers, or they're being earnest and sincere when it comes to Trubisky's future.
Yeah, I think I choose the latter there.
Same.
Now, the next question is, with my fingers pointing up in the air, trying to contextualize everything that he said, what does it mean? What does it mean? And I don't think you can come away from some of these quotes without thinking, about the possibility of an extension, maybe.
Yeah, and you have an article up that went up a little bit later on Tuesday outlining what an extension could look like. And I think for Pittsburgh, there's an incentive to do that, because the issue with Trubisky is that salary, owed $8 million base salary next year. And the thought has been for a while, at least prior to the Rooney comments, of cap casualty, clear that cap space, go sign a cheaper veteran backup quarterback behind Pickett. And that would be the move. And now it seems like that's not going to be the case. Trubisky will remain as the number 2, but it is going to come at a cost. And so an extension, and you can lay things out for me, Dave, would bring that number down, would it not?
Yeah, look, $10.625 million is his scheduled cap charge as we sit here right now. Now, can they figure out ways to work around that without doing an extension or a restructure or anything with Mitch Trubisky's contract? Absolutely. There's always a way, right? Depending on how far you want to dig deep into some of these restructures, cuts, whatever. You can figure out a way to work around that $10.625 million salary cap charge. Now, what are the alternatives, especially if you're talking about the possibility of an extension with him? Now, first and foremost, he's due $8 million as his contract currently stands right now. Okay. He probably would like to at least earn that $8 million in 2023. Would you not agree with that?
I would. He doesn't want to take a pay cut.
All right. So barring some sort of straight out pay cut with him, what if you did a 2-year extension with him and you gave him an additional where's my numbers here? 1.37 or one, it would actually end up being, I think, 1.25 million in additional money to go along with that 8 million. And what you would do is you would take his base salary as part of this extension, lower it down to 1.375 million. You would take 7.875 and give that to him as part of a signing bonus. Okay. And then add 2 years onto his deal with base, and these are example base salaries to kind of coincide with maybe a new money average of around $5 million. But his in my example, I have base salaries of $4 million in 2024 and $4.75 million in 2025. Now, obviously, you people listening to this, you'll get more out of it if you see it in writing, like on the site. But if you don't want to look at that and you want me to explain it to you, the result of a 2-year extension by giving Mitch Trubisky $9.25 million in total in 2023 versus the $8 million he was scheduled to make would lower his cap charge the way I have this thing structured by exactly $4 million. Okay. And once again, it would put $9.25 million in his pocket in 2023. His cap charge in 2023 would lower to $6.625 million. The way I have this set up, the 2024 cap charge would also be $6.625 million. And then his balloon at the end of it there in 2025, assuming he was still on the roster, then his cap charge in 2025 would be $7.375 million. So the cash flow would be $9.25 million in 2023 through 2024 it'd be 13.25, and then obviously through 2025 it would be 18 million. Now, for accounting for way it looks on paper in the quarterback, how much does he earn category, his new money average would come in at $5 million, because you're basically taking, he was scheduled to earn $8 million in 2023 originally, a 2-year extension, everything would total out at 18 minus 8 is 10. That means 10 million in new money. It would work out to a new money average of $5 million with him. And once again, the big byproduct of this would be lowering his cap charge by $4 million in 2023. You've got to probably give him some incentive to do that. And the incentive, once again, would giving him an extra $1.25 million in 2023. And, making the deal at least in 2024, where you better think twice if you really want to part ways with him, because technically you would only save like $1 million in cap space versus what his cap charge would be versus what the dead money acceleration would be. So you have to ask yourself, do you like him that much. That would be one option. And I think if they did end up doing any sort of an extension with him, Alex, I think it would look very similar to the way I have it laid out right here. Now, your rebuttal in all this would be, you know what? Why not just do the void year plan with him?
Right.
Because maybe he doesn't want to be in Pittsburgh past this year. Maybe he still wants his $8 million, but maybe he'll want to see what else is out there after this year. Well, yeah, you could absolutely do, a 4-year void, basically, restructure, if you will, and you would add 4 additional years onto his contract. He wouldn't get any more new money, but he would get his $8 million, with most of it being a signing bonus, when this would be done. And then that would lower his 2023 cap charge to $5.089 million, which would drop it from what it's scheduled to be by $5.536 million. So there's really just, if you want a significant cap savings with him this offseason, and he's not going to take any less than $8 million in 2023. These are really your two options, I believe, to take place here.
Right. I'm with you there. I think here's my thoughts on that. We're still not that far removed from Mitch Trubisky right after the season ended, essentially saying he regrets signing in Pittsburgh, telling ESPN that he rushed into the decision, signing on day one, and he says he wished he would have taken more time to think that one out and contemplate before signing a 2-year deal with Pittsburgh. Now, I'm still of that steadfast belief he will be a Steeler in 2023, based on what Art Rooney has said, based on what Omar Khan has said. I don't think Trubisky maybe would love to stay in Pittsburgh, although there's a case to be made, and I'll write this for Wednesday, that there's good reason for him to want to stay in Pittsburgh for 2023, but he doesn't have all the control. He doesn't have the leverage and the power here, and he's not going to make that big of a stink about it, even if he doesn't really want to be here to be Kenny Pickett's backup. So I just can't see what the reason or incentive for Trubisky to sign an extension with Pittsburgh now, as opposed to playing this year out, seeing what things look like next year and taking it from there.
The incentive, my rebuttal to that would be the incentive of him earning $9.25 million in 2023. He'd be hard pressed if he was cut. Would you agree that he'd be hard pressed to put $9.25 million in his bank account in 2023?
Agreed, but he's not going to be cut.
Okay, but if he was,
right, but to me, it's a moot point. Okay. Yeah, I agree he wouldn't get that money anywhere else, but Pittsburgh's not going to cut him. We agree.
No, at this point, I'd be very surprised if they do now. And I think the other add on to that is he's virtually, use that delicately, he's virtually guaranteed to earn 13.25 through 2024. So, maybe he needs to look in the mirror and say, am I really, even if I go somewhere else? I mean, I'm all for someone betting on themselves, right? I can be better than this. I'll show everybody I'm going to go be a starting quarterback in this league, and I'm going to land a bigger contract. If he did hit free agency right now anyway, how many teams are going to sign him to just a 1-year deal? He's probably it's going to end up being a 2-year deal. To me, he's do you want to be that guy that jumps from team to team every year? Become the new cheaper version of Carson Wentz. I think there is incentive at this point for him now to maybe think and accept the fact that I'm probably going to be a backup in the NFL. Why not be one of the league's highest paid backups? And I'm playing behind a guy that is I might get some snaps in here.
Sure, I think he would, but again, he's going to stay in Pittsburgh next year. Let's assume nothing were to change. He's getting his $8 million base salary. The extension gives him just over $1 million more. Is it worth it to lock yourself down through 2025 for that $1 million more? And I know you said $13 million through next year through 2024, but can he play $8 million this year and then try to make $5 million somewhere else next year? I think he can do that.
Okay, that's a great side of the reason argument against him doing that.
Right. Now, here's what I think. I have two thoughts with Trubisky. The one, what I think Pittsburgh should do, and one, what I think Pittsburgh will do. The one I think they should do is that voidable year dummy extension. It's the best of both worlds, keeps Trubisky, lowers that cap number. It does create dead money, and that's a byproduct of it. But, and I know the Steelers have been against this, but is it really all that different than restructuring a contract? There are differences. I understand he plays somewhere else next year in all likelihood, but it's all can kicking, and Pittsburgh restructures themselves every single year with their top guys. They're going to likely do that this year with TJ Watt and others. So I don't really see why it's that big of a cardinal sin to do the dummy extension with Trubisky. Now, what I think will happen is nothing. He plays for his $8 million base salary in 2023, and there's no pay cut, there's no extension, there's no dummy extension.
They just remains a Steeler.
They just work around his number, which, as you said, they can do. They want him here. He's not going to take a pay cut. I don't think there's enough to incentivize him for an extension, and so he's just a pretty expensive backup. But in Pittsburgh's mind, that's valuable as that insurance policy behind Kenny Pickett.
Okay, then how would you interpret what Khan said about? Do you think that's more of just being cordial and saying we want him here more years?
When he said for a long time?
Yeah.
Partially, I think that was more GM speak and just trying to have that olive branch too. We like you, Mitch. We value, you, Mitch, and we want you to be part of this team. And even if you assume that Khan really wants Trubisky in Pittsburgh long term or longer term, that it takes two to tango in that regard. And Trubisky may not want to be in Pittsburgh for a long time. So the feeling, I don't think, would be mutual. Again, he will be a Steeler in 2023, but the guy just 2 months ago, not even 2 months ago, said, I regret signing here. I don't know if he's going to go from that thought to let's sign an extension in the matter of 2 months.
Okay. Well, I guess in that really there's three options here. There's the full 4-year voidable route. There's the a 2-year extension similar to either exactly what I laid out or pretty damn close to it. Mm-hmm. And then the nothing option, do nothing option.
Why and I know the answer is going to be, well, this is the way we've always done things. Why would this team not utilize the voidable years? It doesn't even create a precedent because there's no leverage that another player would ever have against them. They can use it when they want to, when they need to, and they don't have to in the future. So why are they so anti-dummy year extension?
I think just from the sheer fact that you're automatically forcing, you're automatically creating dead money.
How much dead money would that create next year if you did that the way that you project it to be?
It would be $5.536 million.
Okay. It's obviously not something
which isn't, it ain't chump change, but it's also not 12 million,
Right. And the cap is going to go up, and we expect next year's cap to go up pretty substantially, right? Is that new money? TV deal money kicks in or no? Or is that the year after?
Possibly the year. I mean, I think at least you're looking at 230 something million maybe next year.
Yeah. So I still think as a percentage of the cap, which is the way that I view any contract, but also dead money, it's going to be a sliver of that. Is it ideal? No. But if it lowers the cap hit this year without taking any money from Trubisky, to me, that's the best of both worlds.
Okay. Now, once again, I'm not saying that this is the way it's going to go or advocating this is the way it's going to go. This is a byproduct of, context, trying to read into context of what Omar Khan said today.
Yeah, again, Khan may want this to happen. I'm sure they like Trubisky. They like the presence, the comfort of having a veteran backup quarterback. I'm not saying that Khan's being disingenuous when he says that, but that takes two to tango. Trubisky, he's kind of stuck. If he wants out, Pittsburgh controls him. And again, I don't think Trubisky's going to really strong arm his way out of Pittsburgh. I don't think he's that kind of guy. I don't think that's going to happen. So, but for an extension, Trubisky has to agree to that. And I just don't see, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm totally wrong, but I just don't see him being eager to do that.
All right. Let me ask you, if you would agree to the extension the way I have it laid out exactly on the site, would you be a fan of, would you be okay with it working out that way?
Sure. I have no issue with that. Again, I think having that veteran quarterback is fine. I was never crazy about the Trubisky signing in general when they first happened, but that was for a starter capacity. I knew this was going to be a really short-term kind of thing, but as a backup, yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay. Well, I mean, it gives us something to look at now. And I mean, look, I think we're past the stage now of wondering if he's going to get cut.
Some people on the internet, my Twitter timeline, still some people are committed that this is a smokescreen. This is all games. He's going to get traded. He's going to get cut. He's not going to play for this money. If it is, I mean, this is the best smokescreen Pittsburgh's ever had.
Right. I mean, look, if they have someone coming off you, what would it, and once again, I think a team, if they traded for him, would at this point probably ask the Steelers to eat some money.
Sure, I think so. Yeah, I don't know. The question I've asked a couple people is, what would it take Khan and Rooney to say to convince you they want Trubisky to be a Steeler in 23? Okay. Like a blood oath? Like, I don't know what more these guys can say and do and how much and strongly they can express it that they want Trubisky to be their backup next year, because there's a reason why they kept Mason Rudolph around. They really value that veteran quarterback room, the strength of the room, top to bottom. They don't want to gut that room already knowing they're almost guaranteed to lose Rudolph, and they're not going to dump Trubisky and have to start all over. And again, if you cut Trubisky, you save the $8 million pre-displacement, you go sign a veteran backup, it's going to cost you $3-4 million. So it's really about saving $4 million with Trubisky as opposed to $8 million. You could still argue it's worth it, but the numbers get a lot tighter.
Right.
So that's the thought on Trubisky. What else am Omar Khan talking about? Extensions. We'll stick with that. Talked about conversations have begun with Cam Sutton, this team's biggest pending free agent. And Khan, I don't believe any talks have happened with Alex Highsmith yet. And while he did not outright say, yes, we want to do an extension with Highsmith, his answer was to the effect of, we value our own, we value the young guys. You guys know how we take care of them. And so basically hinting at there's going to be some conversations with the Highsmith camp later this year.
And now that this is in the rearview mirror and he has spoken on it, my thoughts on both these situations is I will be surprised if Cameron Sutton isn't re-signed, and I'll be equally just as surprised if Alex Highsmith does not have a new contract by week 1 of the NFL season.
I'm with you on both fronts there. Now, again, interested on the numbers on Sutton and Highsmith for that matter, but I think both get done.
I do as well, too. And I think a couple other unrestricted, whoever they may be, the Terrell Edmonds, we'll see what happens with Larry Ogunjobi, the Zach Gentrys. There will be a handful of these guys that get re-signed,
Sure, there will. Do you think they'll happen before March 15th, or could some of them extend into the new league year?
Obviously, I think a few of them will, and I think it'll be some of both. I think some. Okay. I think you'll have a few maybe that go out there and want to take a look around, a la Terrell Edmonds last year, but I think the bigger name ones. In other words, if Larry Ogunjobi gets out the door on March 15th, I don't think he's coming back. Okay,
that's fair. Is that just because he's already known that Pittsburgh just isn't going to offer him whatever he wants, and he's going to go somewhere else?
Yeah, and I think he's screaming up the free agent board right now just from the sheer fact that it's decreasing.
Right, Deron Payne officially tagged today by Washington.
Right. You could make a good argument that now that Payne is tagged and who's the kid in Minnesota?
Dalvin Tomlinson.
Yeah. If indeed they get him done before March 15th, which it really sounds like that was the goal to do, then you can make a good argument that Ogunjobi's one of the top 2 or 3 defensive tackles on the market. Obviously, Javon Hargraves is going to lead that list, but who's behind him?
Yeah, I don't know who the second guy would be. Fletcher Cox, his teammate in Philadelphia, maybe, but obviously the age there is going to be a factor. So that'll be, again, another really interesting one to watch. We have not spoken about Ogunjobi a lot. I think by NFL law, he has to go to Baltimore because he's already played for Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and Cincinnati. So he's really got to complete the AFC North tour.
They will re-sign, I'll go this far. They will re-sign a couple of their own restricted free agents before March 15th.
Yeah, I think
Sutton, is that 2, 3, 4 of them? I don't know, but there will be at least 2, I predict.
I'll say at least Sutton, Gentry, and Spillane, and maybe some others, but I'll say at least those 3 I'm pretty confident get re-signed before March 15th.
Right. Now, anybody else that, really, that's the top of their list anyway, right?
Well, there's Ogunjobi, Edmonds, right. Casey. We'll have to see on those, but I think Gentry is going to be most valuable to Pittsburgh. They like his size. Spillane is certainly, I think, more valuable to Pittsburgh, and they value him more highly than any other team in football will. So that's why I say that. And Sutton, there's just going to be, I think, a real eagerness to get that deal done.
All right. We didn't really learn a lot there other than just confirmation more than anything, right?
Right. I mean, there is, when Khan mentioned beyond that, certainly got the antenna up and got us talking about, could an extension happen? So that might be new on that front of things.
Right.
But that confirmation, I think, is important. That is something that but I really think, again, if Rooney wants it, he's going to get it. So even if Khan really didn't want to keep Trubisky or had some thoughts about it, when Rooney says, yeah, we want this guy to stay, it's like, all right, well, we got to make it work so he stays.
Right.
Another thing, quarterback related, and I feel like this was with PFT with Mike Florio and Chris Sims. This was a little bit Florio leading the horse to water. Nothing else Khan could really say, but asked about, Pickett's 2 concussions with all the focus on Tua and in Miami, the concussions that he had. Basically, Florio said he hears a lot from Dolphins fans and say, why do you never talk about Kenny Pickett and his pair of concussions? And so Florio asked Khan, are you concerned about the 2 that Pickett had this year? And Khan said it is concerning. And I don't think he really knew how best to answer that, because you don't want to say it's not concerning, because of course it is concerning, but it's, what do you do about that? But he said, it's obviously a concern, 2 concussions. It's obviously a concern, unquote. And so that's a real factor with Pickett. He had a strong year overall, but 2 concussions in 1 year is pretty scary.
And they did talk about him switching helmets in that interview today with Florio. They talked about, coaching staff maybe talking to him some about maybe not taking some of these sacks. We'll get him some offensive linemen too. While you're at it there. I will say this, and it's not being disrespectful to Omar Khan either. You could tell this was Omar Khan's first combine rodeo, right?
He wasn't Nick Sirianni first presser nervous, but he seemed a little nervous for sure. Yeah.
Right. He'll get back. He wasn't robotic like Kevin Colbert has been.
Colbert just didn't give an F. Like he was like, I've been here. I've done that. Nothing even phases me anymore.
Right. But there, and once again, it's not disrespect to Khan. It's just, and how could you, it's your first time, and he'll be a lot more comfortable with it next time around there. Okay. We talked any more on things that he had to, he's, Pickett's our guy, yada, yada. We don't have to look for a quarterback this year, yada, yada. What else did he have to say that's worth rehashing here?
Yeah, a couple more thoughts, and I will say Colin can be as nervous and flustered as he wants as long as his team wins. I don't care. He can just say whatever he wants. If he wins, then all is forgiven, all is forgotten. I was bummed that Khan seems a bit more close to the vest in terms of the breaking down the class by class. Where are the strengths, the weaknesses? We talked about that Monday. Would he kind of do what Colbert always did? Which I know.
I think he was being overly careful there, not to say the wrong thing.
Right, and not maybe give a bit of a hint to where they're thinking. Because I know Colbert always spoke generally, but they largely matched up with the direction this team was going. And you can kind of play those Blues Clues games that we're not going to be able to play quite as well. He just, Khan said, it's a good class. It's a good group of guys. Didn't talk about any strengths or weaknesses. So that was one I was a little bummed by. I wanted to get a little bit of insight from Omar on just his overall thoughts on this class.
Now, he did, I think, kind of slip up a little bit. Kind of the need. Was that where you were going here?
Yeah, you could take it. No,
let me search. Let me make sure I search out the proper quote here.
This was on with Florio, right, when he talked about priorities. Is this
feel free to throw that quote out there. But there was the one, I think, in the scrum.
Okay.
Prior to the podium one, what was the quote that caught you from Florio?
I don't have it in front of me right now. Maybe I can try to pull up. I mean, it was asked about where your needs and priorities, and Khan started by saying, anything that makes the team better, we're going to explore. The very coach speak cliche type answer. But then he kind of went through a couple of positions in his head, saying whether it's O-line, D-line, corner, basically naming some of the top needs in mind. So obvious stuff, nothing that earth-shattering, but it was interesting to kind of see his brain work when he was asked about needs after going really generally kind of rattled off some of the stuff that we know might be important to Pittsburgh, trenches and cornerback room.
Okay. I'm referring to, about the 12-minute mark in the scrum pre-podium at the combine. He says, let's see. You kind of got to go with needs sometimes, he was asked. And he would say, I would say you'd have to go need. Yeah. Yep. He did. If you go back and listen to that, I think he kind of cornered himself there. But and not that it's not surprising, and not that we don't think it was going to go that way anyway. But I found it kind of interesting the way he answered that question, which was pretty much in response to kind of a statement and not a question. And anyway, go back and listen to that and tell me what I came away from it thinking, they he continues to say we're not going to be afraid to add a great player to any of the room, to thinking, we'll whittle these needs down after free agency and all like that. And we'll probably be, I think we can whittle it down to a couple of positions here.
Yeah, I mean, that's what Colbert did. And
right.
I think, Khan even said basically there's a lot of things that Colbert did that I'm going to carry over because he was next to him for 20 years. So, of course, that's going to rub off on you some. But yeah, it's never truly BPA. Pittsburgh never truly drafts the best player available. It's always, where need and value are meeting at its highest point.
Right. So many words, not afraid to trade up. I mean, Kevin Colbert basically says that every year, with the difference being he hardly ever trades up. But he said, if there's a player there that we want, that we don't think that we can get, in other words, he feels like he can be aggressive enough to go up to get a player if there's a player they want to go get.
Yeah, I mean, obviously every team is going to operate that way, but he did, and I forget the exact quote. I don't know which interview it was. He did so many, but at one point he said, I'm an aggressive guy, so I'll go ahead and make a move if we feel like we got to make a move, which, I mean, again, the answer is always maybe. Trading up has so many variables to it. They don't know, they're not going to know until basically draft day if they're going to truly go up or not. When you get offers in, you see the board and you see what your roster looks like, but it wouldn't surprise me. I think this team will make moves. I know this is a very, broad statement to make, but I think this team will make some movement during the draft, whether that's going up, going down, I don't know, but I don't think that they're going to sit there and statically pick all their current selections.
What about first round though?
Yeah, that's maybe is the answer. I don't know for sure. Again, it just depends on what offers look like, who falls, what, it just depends on a million factors.
He was asked, does he consider himself aggressive when it comes to maybe trading up? He would say, he went on to say, I would say from that standpoint, yes, I probably am aggressive. I'm a big believer in listening to every opportunity and then thinking it through, talking it over with my staff and making the right decision. But yeah, I'm open to anything. I'll put it that way.
So I think that, again, no one knows for sure. He can't say for sure, but I think he does make a move. If he's that open, eventually somebody calls you or you call somebody and some deal becomes attractive that you want to take.
Okay. The Andy Weidel conversation, to talk about the role in the draft room and all like that. Recap that and give your thoughts.
I thought it was interesting, and that was something I should have said on Monday's show that I would want to ask Omar Khan, and I'm glad this answer ended up coming out just about some of because there are so many new faces with this front office. Usually, for the last 20 years, it's basically been the same guys with little turnover, probably the least amount of turnover of any front office in football. So, the new players, what are their roles going to be? Omar Khan essentially confirming what Art Rooney said, that Andy Weidel will set the draft board, which is what he did in Philadelphia. Weidel will get influence and talk with Mark Sadowski, who's the director of player scouting, a longtime friend of Omar Khan. They went to Tulane together. And also Weidel will get influence and input from director of college scouting, Dan Colbert, former area scout, Kevin Sutton, who was promoted last summer. So Weidel sets a draft board, and then the actual pick comes down to Khan, Mike Tomlin, and Art Rooney. Do you think it's interesting at all or not interesting that Weidel does not appear to actually be part of that mix to make that final selection?
What did I say a few shows ago? In so many words, I said, I wonder if people are making too much of a big deal about the influence of Andy Weidel come decision time.
And so, yeah, I think you were vindicated by that. Now, obviously, he's going to set the board, and you would imagine Pittsburgh's going to follow that to some degree. But
they're just not going to walk in and Andy says, "Here's your board."
Sure. Oh, absolutely. Right. Yeah, it's always a collaboration, even in setting the board. But Weidel is setting it. What exactly that means? How do you define that? I'm not 100% sure. But the actual decision, I'm a little surprised by that, to be honest. If you're assistant GM, I would think that you would have a hand in actually making that call.
I'm not.
Okay. My thought is
and especially first year in too, on top of it there.
Khan's first year in as GM.
But he's been in the room though,
Yeah, but if you hire a guy to be assistant GM, let him be assistant GM. I mean, basically Weidl has the same role he had in Philadelphia, set the board, and Howie Rose made all the picks. So what is he doing differently in Pittsburgh that he wasn't doing in Philadelphia?
Right from the get-go, my view on this was, I wonder if we're making a little bit too big of a deal about this.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. But do you not consider his background at all? Like, how do you weigh what Weidl's experience is?
Look, having another knowledgeable guy in there to help be a sounding board to help set your board, why not?
Right. I'm just thinking out loud. I mean, how should we weigh? What is the right answer with how do we weigh?
I don't think we can properly without knowing what goes on exactly. I mean, it'd be absolutely fascinating to sit there and be a fly on the wall for the entire process, to know exactly how it's done, how they do it,
Yeah, definitely. And
are there parameters that he's, are there parameters that he's given before setting up the board? Or, it's just not, hey, Andy, get with Sadowski over there and you guys set the board. And then if we want number 12, when number 9's next up, we're going to pick number 12.
Right. I mean, loosely, the process is, area scouts generate reports, positional coaches generate reports, the GMs themselves, I imagine Weidl, given his background, will producing scouting reports, and that whole combination of that, and then just internal discussions help set your board. And apparently Weidl does things not as a number grade, but more as a role, year one starter, future Pro Bowler, backup, etc. That's kind of the way that Weidl sets things. So, I mean, that's basically how, draft systems, all of them, work generally. So what all does that mean? It goes back to your question. What does it mean? What do you value that Weidl, likes the trenches? He values mental toughness. I don't think he really has a size preference. He's talked about in the past that, these guys shouldn't be cookie cutter. We shouldn't get so wrapped up in heights and weights and things like that. But ultimately, how much is that going to matter if he's not the one in the room when an actual pick gets decided upon?
I'll tell you the way the fans will view it. If they draft O-line, D-line, first couple of picks there, and both those players turn out to have fantastic rookie seasons, it'll be, look at the influence Andy Weidl had in here. In the same breath, we're kind of regardless of the picks. If this class ends up turning out good, it'll be, man, thank God they got Andy Weidl in there. However, if it turns out to be a bad draft class, because Omar Khan's been around the longest, he'll take the biggest shot. It'll be, they brought Weidl in. They didn't even let him they didn't even let him have enough say in this. That's the way it will be perceived on the outside. Look, you and I can speculate as much as we want about, as long as we've done this, about who might have what say. But in the end of the day, we're not inside those four walls. So we have to take kind of, what's said in these instances, in these press conferences, and try to add, take it, put them in context, and then try to look at it that way. And my takeaway from where I sit right now on the last day of February is that I think in the bigger pick, not that it's not a great move. I'm glad Weidl's, I just think too much has been made about the influence Weidl will have in the draft, at least this early on in his career in Pittsburgh.
That's fair. I think you're right about that. I think Khan's comments today, point towards what you're saying. But again, then the question becomes, how much influence should we put on it? 0? Obviously, it's not 100, but is it 0? Is it 10%? I mean, if he's setting the board, that still means something. And none of us have the answer to this question that I'm asking, obviously.
Nor really will we ever, unless we're flat out told, and it'll probably be result biased in our heads.
Right. It probably means something bad happened and Weidl got fired and some story comes out, way down the road. But I'm just curious. I'd like to think there's still some influence. If there's no influence, then why hire the guy in the first place? So I'd like to think there's some value in the input and what he's going to do, and I'm sure he'll do a good job. But obviously, it's tough for us to quantify exactly how much influence is going to be.
I think the influence will be more from an aggregating sense and his knowledge of doing it extent.
Right. I still think at the least I know that Khan has obviously been in this building for 20 years. I think he's a smart guy. He's obviously a really bright guy, and I think he probably has a better football acumen than some people give him credit for. But I think Khan will lean on Weidl quite a bit because Weidl is that literal scouts background from area scout to personnel and scouting director essentially, and that's going to influence Khan maybe as much as anybody because Khan has not done this the way that Weidl has done this.
Look, and I don't have an agenda here. Don't just draft a damn good class.
Right, that's all that matters. Yeah, who cares about credit blame? Yeah, for sure.
But I think just from a before and after, speculation and post recap type thing. Once again, I just feel from what we have heard so far, I just feel like too much emphasis has been placed on, all right, they got Andy Weidl in the room now.
Yeah, that's a good point. And listen, I love nerding out about the structure of the Steelers front office, and I know most people don't care, but I think it's a really interesting dynamic, and to have that assistant GM for the first time ever made it more interesting to see how this all was gonna work together. I think it does.
We could watch a 12-hour special on nothing but that behind the scenes stuff like they showed in that most recent Steelers. What's the name of that series they did?
The Standard.
Yeah, The Standard. I mean, if the whole damn thing, they could make a whole kind of hard knock series on it, and I'd watch it 5 times each episode.
Right. They were showing like the start of like the Pro Bowl and Cam Hayward. And I was like, all right, let's stop this. Let's please get to the Senior Bowl part because I don't need to hear about Cam at the Pro Bowl. That's all well and good. But it was cool to hear from Kelvin Fisher and Dan Colbert and stuff like that.
And look, and once again, things that bring us joy, this whole, the pro day circuit and all like that. I mean, I don't know if I get a bigger kick out of actually, going through and paying attention to each one or as much as I do being entertained by your being entertained by it there, and it is part of the Blues Clues process. I think we'll learn a lot about either how they do a handful of things different this time around in the pre-draft process, or maybe we won't learn anything at all. But maybe this is going to be status quo at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think largely it's going to be the same with some changes around the edges. Now, what that looks like and can we be able to quantify that, we'll have to see. And that'll come with time and their selections. And even then, we're going to be guessing. I did think it was interesting. I believe during the SNR interview that Khan was asked about him attending the HBCU Combine and Bowl and the only NFL GM to attend. He talked about how one of his biggest influences was the late, great Bill Nunn, and obviously all that he did scouting HBCUs and finding all those great players in Donnie Shell, John Stallworth, Mel Blount, etc. And so I think where he's cut from a similar cloth as Colbert being around him for so long is that no stone unturned kind of guy. I'm going to scout high and low and take advantage of every opportunity to watch these guys in person, gather as much information as possible. I really admire that about Omar Khan.
Look, I won't be shocked if the 7th round pick comes out of the HBCU Bowl, or if an undrafted free agent or two are added.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's going to be some talent. There's some draftable names from the HBCU level, and Aubrey Miller and Isaiah Land, and so one of those guys might become a Steeler.
All right. He talked about he was very careful when talking about the offensive line, saying, look, and he thought they really progressed as the season went on, communication and continuity, all the things that we've kind of talked about, but he wouldn't, in so many words, he made it clear that he won't rule out potentially upgrading the offensive line, which is the right thing to say.
Right, it is. It wasn't him committing to this for 5, but it wasn't him trying to throw this 5 under the bus. And they did certainly improve last year, but that really just kind of puts us back at, square one of what does this team do? Do they improve this offensive line starters, or do they run it back with the starting 5? I don't think we're any closer to knowing that answer.
Let's see. We covered the draft picks will be decided by Con Tomlin and Art Rooney portion.
One big thing I want to talk about from the current roster, DeMarvin Leal. I was our Joe Clark that asked the question about DeMarvin Leal, which was one of our, I think you had said that was the one question you would hope Omar Khan to be asked about. What's the plan? What's the vision for Leal? Is he going to go back to every down defensive lineman or lean on that versatility he showed last year? And Khan essentially said it's going to be what it was last year, or at least highlighting his versatility, playing inside, playing outside. And I think that's honestly the right move. I'm surprised that seems to be their track, but I'm happy that it is.
And verbatim, he said, I think the great thing about DeMarvin is his versatility. We're not going to try to do anything that's going to hinder his versatility. We like that he can go inside, outside, and Coach Tomlin can utilize him in a lot of different places. And I foresee that continuing. So, I mean, I think you got to take that at face value, right? I mean, which would seem to indicate, though, that even a little bit even more emphasis maybe on defensive line early in this draft, right?
I think so. If Khan is true to his word, then I don't expect Leal to get up to 300 pounds and add a bunch of weight. He's going to be similar to the role he was his rookie year, where he's going to play some rotational edge and some sub-package pass rusher with his hand down as a 3-tech, and maybe even some off-ball work. They used that in a couple of packages, some blitz packages last year against Buffalo. So if that's going to be their plan, then he's not going to be a full-time defensive lineman. And if Ogunjobi's not re-signed, that room does look really light. And so that's something that will have to be addressed pretty significantly.
So takeaway, I think, from that lone question from our own Joe Clark and the answer from Omar Khan is, barring numerous injuries, we don't expect DeMarvin Leal to hit 750 snaps.
As a defensive lineman, correct? Right. Yeah, I don't expect, and probably not
really
in general.
In total.
But, I mean, with injury, who the heck knows? What could happen?
I mean, injuries aside,
Yeah. Now, do you think that's the right call to highlight the versatility as opposed to making him what he kind of was supposed to be, what they intended him to be as an every down defensive lineman?
From what I've seen so far on tape, which, let's face it, it's not a ton, but I think it is the right move right now.
I think so too. Now, does that solve the edge depth concern, or is that still no?
No, I think you've just got a versatile player that you can do numerous things with.
Okay, so you still think edge is going to be a pretty high priority in terms of
I think they need. I think they could use another edge. I think they could use two true outside linebackers. One a lot more slanted to special teams, and I think they should have in total on the 53-man roster, not counting Leal. I think they should have 4 outside linebackers, 4 outside linebackers.
Okay. So it'll be still, let's assume, Watt, Highsmith, some external source, and let's just say Jameer Jones.
If that's the way, I'm hoping that they can do better than Jameer Jones, who, by the way, and we said this would probably be the case on the podcast the other day. Any day now, he's signing his exclusive right, being re-signed as an exclusive rights free agent, and that did indeed happen on Monday. So if he's all that you got at the end of the day, then fine. But would like to see someone that has special teams and can give you a little bit more as an edge player.
Yeah, I'm just using him as the catch-all number 4, because that guy's going to have to play a lot of special teams if Leal's obviously not going to do that. And if, let's just say, a Bud Dupree gets signed, then he's not going to do much of that. So it could be Roche, it could be an undrafted
Do you
guy.
Agree with my assessment, or can Leal be serve as one of the 4?
It's a really good question. I'm a little mixed on it because I think it lessens the need, because if this guy's going to play, 20 snaps, 15 snaps a game, rotational edge, then you don't necessarily need that, true and blue 3rd-round pick to come in and be an Alex Highsmith, like his rookie year, and kind of be that rotational guy. But also knowing that Leal is still going to play with his hand down, kick inside on some 3rd downs. I mean, could you get kind of more of a pure pass rusher as a number 3 that plays on more pass rush downs? I know Pittsburgh generally doesn't split it that way, but if Leal is going to be your big edge that can play against the run on early downs, then kicks inside on 3rd down, maybe you can get away with a bit different body type, some more smaller speed rusher to play on 3rd downs.
And look, once again, I'm not rubber stamping DeMarvin Leal, for the rest of his career. I'm just saying what we have seen right now, looking at his weight, looking at depth of the defensive line. This was a question, and we've talked about it all off season, right? Wanting this type of question asked and answered. And I think based on the tape that we've seen so far and what Omar said on Tuesday, from what we've seen right now, I think that is the correct answer for him to continue being a versatile guy.
Yeah, I think so. But I still think I do think if Leal is going to be that hybrid type guy, that it lessens the need to some degree, the urgency to add edge depth.
Okay.
But glad to get some clarification there, and we'll see how true that ends up being, and honestly how he's used, and I'll be watching for that very closely come training camp.
All right, got a Calvin Austin III update from Khan.
Yeah, vote of confidence in Calvin Austin, saying they expect great things. He said, quote, Khan did on Austin, he's good. He's progressing nicely. The OTAs and the spring ball will be big for him just to see where he's at, but he's coming along. Excited about him. We're expecting great things from Calvin. So does that impact your thoughts at all in terms of this team potentially addressing a slot receiver?
Look, here's the thing. We got to see him do it on the field.
Of course. Yeah, definitely.
Now, you got Anthony Miller back in the fold. We'll see what happens with Steven Sims. Obviously Gunner under contract. I subscribe to the fact that if you think you can upgrade the room at the slot position more particularly, you should consider doing it in this draft.
Right. The question is, would you go with a higher round pick? Because if it's more of a mid-round, late-round guy, I mean, it could be depth, but if you're going to really upgrade, then
I think the answer is yes. But look, I mean, I think your mock, maybe it opened some people's eyes. Maybe it didn't. I mean, what is the potential of the thing them not trading up and things falling, and look, do I think we should read much into Khan giving the answer about Jordan Addison on Tuesday after being specifically asked about Jordan Addison? I mean, it's not like he out of the blue said, you know what, that Jordan Addison's a really good football player. Don't know if you knew that or not. No.
But it was the one prospect he mentioned. He could have found a way to evade that answer if he wanted to.
But wasn't he asked specifically about Addison?
So, yeah, something like that. He didn't say it unprompted, but...
Right, and that's what I'm getting. I mean, it looks good in print, makes for a great story, especially on the heels of Kenny saying, I'm going to be banging the table for Jordan Addison, and then, retweeting the stuff yesterday on Twitter. I mean, and look, and at least Khan said this, we have picked Kenny Pickett's brain about some Pitt players. Now that was Pitt players as a whole, and why wouldn't you, do that? But I just want to make it clear. I mean, we wrote about it because that's what we do. Him saying Jordan Addison is a really good football player, I don't think tips any hand about Jordan Addison in the first round to the Steelers or anything like that. Now, I guess, he could have said, Jordan, there's not only Jordan Addison, but there's quite a few good football players, in the slot. Maybe he could have went that way, but I think you're scraping if you want to dissect that down, drill that down and make something of it.
Sure. Obviously it's no smoking gun, but I'll put my tinfoil hat on for a second. I haven't had that on. I haven't had it fitted in a little while. So
I don't know if mine still fits.
All right. Fair enough. You gotta put it back. You gotta put it on with me and see if it does fit, Dave. I think Kevin Colbert rarely mentioned prospect names. He mentioned only one last year, and again, it was one of those where he was kind of asked semi-related about it, and it was Kenny Pickett, only name he mentioned last year. And so, only name that Omar Khan has mentioned and probably will mention this pre-draft cycle is Jordan Addison. And I'm not crazy about the idea, but after doing that mock draft, seeing the board kind of break in all the wrong ways for Pittsburgh, given the slot need, given Pickett, obviously making your quarterback happy, making your offense better, I don't know. Maybe it's not a crazy idea after all, even putting aside Khan's comments. I don't think it's a crazy thought that Addison will be on Pittsburgh's radar at 17.
Somehow I feel like I got do-si-doed around here or something. Here. Long story short, as we sit here on February 28th, I'm not ready to say that absolutely Jordan Addison won't be picked by the Steelers in the 2023 NFL draft.
Right. Yeah. I never thought that you thought otherwise.
Okay. But you kind of made it sound like in asking me there that you thought, do they really need to upgrade this? Here, if they could get, I think a skill set of maybe an Addison and a skill set of Calvin Austin can be used in different areas of the offense at different portions of the game.
Right. Yeah, they're different skill sets. Like the things, like I've seen some people suggest, just an example, Tank Dell as an option for Pittsburgh. But to me, he's so redundant to Calvin Austin.
Right.
That's not a good selection. But Addison's a different body type, different style, different way in which he wins. I mean, really what got me thinking about it more was my mock draft, where all the top cornerbacks were gone, all the top tackles were gone. And I kind of felt like I don't know what direction to go. D-line is thin. It's Brzee, and that's about it. And then Addison just kind of stares you in the face. And
they did say they got to score more points, right?
Right. I mean, adding weapons is always a good thing.
And look, I'm sure this will all be circled into Dave hates Calvin Austin. But I mean, my viewpoint right now on Calvin Austin is I just can't wait to see him on the field playing.
Yeah, I'm sure Pittsburgh's in that same boat.
How can you expect me to have a extremely optimistic outlook about Calvin Austin when I'm still in the place where I was after the draft with him last year? I mean, you've fortunately have at least got to see him in some training camp practices. I haven't, right. So I'm still right where I and plus, and look, do I think this foot injury is damning and long-term to him? No, there's no reason for me to think that. But within that, and I can't be comfortable with Calvin Austin as the team's every down slot guy in 11 personnel until I actually see it happen. Do you want me to just play fanboy and say, yeah, he's the answer there? Long story short, if they get an opportunity to help, give a little bit of a different skill set to go along with him as someone in play in the slot, whether it's round 1 or round 7, I think they should take the opportunity to do that. If other needs can't be met, if it runs into a situation like you ran into in that mock the other night.
Mm-hmm. And Addison makes a lot of sense. I think Zay Flowers does as well. I know Addison will get talked about a lot, but I think the connections they have with Zay Flowers that Mike Tomlin has with him, that explosive yak threat, similar to Austin, but I think still stylistically a bit different as well. I think those are the two names. If they do go receiver in the first round, I still think those odds are a little bit lower. But if they do go receiver,
I think it's the lowest of several groups, that they'll be focused on: offensive line, defensive line, cornerback, and all like that. But once again, I'll leave it at this. And look, I mean, we've got a whole pro day circuit and visitors and free agency and all like that. I mean, a month from now, we might be sitting here saying, man, can you believe we were even entertaining the idea of maybe them taking a wide receiver early?
Yeah, they could go sign a veteran slot guy early in free agency, and this conversation probably becomes pretty moot.
But right now, I don't think you can definitively bet your house that the team won't draft Jordan Addison. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I'm with you there. It's a name it's a name probably I should consider a bit more than I had in the past. And even though I don't know if I see first round talent screaming at me, especially for a slot receiver where your offense is not going to run through him, I think the connections, the need, just too much to ignore that. Again, if those top tackles are gone, top corners are gone, it may leave them saying, hey, at least let's go with a guy that we know and feel pretty confident in.
Right.
What else from Omar Khan? Anything else from Khan that you want to discuss?
He gave the proverbial we'll leave the door open and the light on for Mason Rudolph. I mean, if anything that he said on Tuesday was more lip service cordial, it was that. What else is he going to say? See you, Mason. You never know. So why definitively, say that this guy won't be back because you just don't know, some things, how they might turn out. I will say this, all that Omar Khan has said to date, I would be absolutely shocked if Mason Rudolph is back, and even on a minimal, deal. I just think this was Omar Khan politely doing just that, leaving the door open for, well, you never know.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. The only way Rudolph would or could come back is if Trubisky was gone, and you can't have Trubisky back and Rudolph back. So assuming they're earnest and honest with the comments about Trubisky being a Steeler next year, then Mason Rudolph will not.
All right, and the other thing that's probably less obvious that I wrote about today, Omar Khan is open to restructuring contracts for salary cap purposes. And if you're listening and you've read my off season and cap outlook and talking on the podcast and that whole episode that I did dedicated to it, I fully expect this team to restructure at least one of TJ Watt or Minkah Fitzpatrick, if not both. And in so many words, that's what Omar Khan said. Look, the goal is to put together a 53-man roster. They think that they can compete for a Super Bowl, and if restructuring contracts is part of that process of doing that, then they'll be more than open to do it. I think they're going to have to anyway. And another thing that he said, look, this is just life year to year anyway. Restructuring is part of the deal, folks, and it has been part of the Steelers deal for numerous years now. And I will be shocked if at least not one of Watt or Fitzpatrick is not restructured. And be quite honest with you, I'm expecting both of them to be restructured. I think it's only a matter of when.
I was going to ask, is this more of a spring thing, more of a summer thing?
It'll be interesting to see, what will the cuts look like? How much cap space what's going to happen with Mitch Trubisky? Are they indeed going to ride him on $8 million through, for the year or not? Or are they going to do some sort of, contract manipulation like we talked about earlier on the show there? I can't give a definitive there. Normally I'd say they like to wait until the off season. But, maybe the way they've got things lined up here, maybe one of them will get done early.
Yeah, I was going to say, if one gets done early, would that be a sign that they may keep some of those potential cap casualties, a Keller Witherspoon, a Miles Jack, or that it may signal a more aggressive free agency than maybe what we initially thought?
I think in several of the interviews today, my takeaway was don't expect this free, and I thought this going into today anyway, I don't expect this outside free agency cycle to look anything like last year's.
Will it look like a typical Kevin Colbert dumpster diving year or something more?
I think might be one or two names that everybody maybe gets halfway excited about, and then the rest is, kind of fill-ins.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. I just want to see who's all out there. I think it'll be more depth. Let me ask you this. Will the Steelers / Omar Khan sign any free agent who it will be a day one starter next year?
That's a good question, Alex.
The way that Miles Jack and James Daniels and Mason Cole, obviously I don't think you're going to get
I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no.
I'll say yes. I don't know who, I don't know where, but I'll say one.
Okay. What kind of position are you leaning toward then? And we're talking outside free agents, right?
External free agents. Yeah.
It would have to be a safety, right? Or a linebacker?
Safety, inside linebacker. I'm kind of painting myself into a corner by answering that without you thinking about it fully. But yeah, I would say inside linebacker, strong safety.
Okay. All right. Maybe in other words, something like a David Long or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
You don't think it? Do you think Tremaine Edmonds is a legitimate option?
No,
I don't either.
Too much money. I mean, could Pittsburgh theoretically afford it? Yes, but are they going to spend that kind of capital? No.
Right. I mean, I've kind of got my sights on a lot of the Chase Winovich kind of level kind of guys, which I won't be surprised if that happens. By the way, we'll see. But all right, what else?
I think that seemed to wrap up most of Khan there. Yeah, I think that was, again, affirmed the confidence in Pickett and watching this offense grow, but that's not breaking any news right there.
All right, shall we see what the email machine has to say?
Yeah, let's get to a couple of reader emails and close out today's show.
All right, this one from Taylor Carpenter in Athens, Ohio. Dave and Alex, here's one for you. What do you think the market value would be for William Jackson on the open market if the Steelers were to cut him? His recent time in Washington was a dud, and he has been battling the back injury. Do you think the Steelers may maybe trying to work out a deal for him for, say, 2 years at a very reduced salary. If healthy, he seems like a better fit than Witherspoon, he says, more physical and maybe a touch better in man coverage. He says, I think the Steelers have a chance to sign him to a cheapish contract with not a lot of guaranteed money. What say you? Look, I would think that those conversations at this point with William Jackson, my thought on William Jackson since the season ended is the only way this guy stays is if he says, you know what, I'll take the minimum veteran salary to compete for a roster spot. Trim everything else off my deal. I want to stay here. I want to compete. I think that's the only way he stays. I really think on the open market right now, his market value is a veteran benefit deal, which means a base salary for his accrued seasons at the minimum plus $152,500 signing bonus at the max. I think that's his market value right now. I think he needs to prove otherwise to that. No, I wouldn't do any kind of a 2-year reduced salary. My offer to him as Omar Khan would be, you want to stay, you got to cut it down to the minimum. End of story.
Yeah, I'm with you, Dave. I think that's what his market value is. I shake his hand, say we had a great 2 practices together, William Jackson. Now go enjoy the spa business that you're getting into, and we wish you luck. I don't think he's coming back. I don't have any desire to bring him back.
All right, Matt Clemma writes in, love the podcast and site, especially during free agency and the draft. I think the most interesting topic in free agency is how the Steelers handle the inside linebacker position and Myles Jack. He says, in my opinion, there are a number of potential free agents who would be an upgrade over Jack, and the Steelers could structure a contract in which the first year cap hit would be less than $8 million, which would be the savings in cutting Jack. He says, I'm thinking David Long, White, Edwards, Pratt, etc. He said, thoughts on cutting Jack and the Steelers are able to get a significant upgrade for less than $8 million first year cap hit. I don't think you need to. Players should not be evaluated by their cap hit, first and foremost. Players should be evaluated by what their new money average is. That's my first thought on it. We just talked about Mitch Trubisky, who's got. Would there be any inkling to give Myles Jack a 2-year extension similar to the one that we talked about with Mitch Trubisky? I didn't even think about this, but they both have $8 million salaries due. Would that be an option at all? More than likely, you're probably going to say no to that.
Yeah, I would still say no to that. Again, dummy extension maybe, but not a true extension. I don't think he's going to be a long-term guy, and so I don't really see the extension route being feasible.
I don't think he was asked about Myles Jack today, was he?
No, I don't think he was. He wasn't really asked about the inside linebackers at all.
Right. There was the question about the, I guess, the evaluation process of the off the ball as far as, I forget exactly how that was phrased.
It's about the college guys, right? Not the current roster.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't think Khan said much about that.
Matt, I think the most interesting thing is to see how the Steelers are going to handle the inside linebacker position right now. Theoretically, could they cut Jack, like you say, and go after a guy like Long or White or yeah, they could, but they better do it. They better get it right this time.
And they've been getting it wrong a lot.
Right. So I don't feel the conviction as far as in myself as far as speculating how that might turn out. I think where I am right now on February 28th is I think they're just going to hold on to Myles Jack.
Yeah, this one's really
at least through the new league, at least through March 15th.
Right. Well, I think the reader's saying, hold on to Jack until you sign one of these other guys, and then you cut Myles Jack. He's kind of your insurance plan there. I don't know if that'll be the approach Pittsburgh takes or not. Not the fairest of the player, but we'll see. That it's really tough. Making me choose, I think they hold on to Jack as well, but it's one I'll be watching very closely because he's right on that edge. I could see him cut. I could see him stay.
Yeah, and we agree. I mean, this is going to like Matt writes here. I mean, this will be one of the most interesting topics or things that may or may not happen over the course of the next 2 or 3.5 weeks.
Yeah, I think Bush is gone. Spillane, I'm pretty confident, will return. Marcus Allen could go either way, not really affecting the defensive depth chart at all. Jack is the wild card here.
Right. I wish we could add more insight to you, Matt, but it is one of those things that's, one of the biggest things I think maybe to watch during this process here. Brian Tellini writes in, Dave and AK did a deep safety class in 2022 hurt Terrell Edmunds' market in free agency, and will a weak safety class in 2023 help it? Can you discuss what you believe Edmunds' market value is and the max the Steelers should go to retain him? In my head, I'm thinking somewhere between $3 and $4 million new money average with Edmunds. And as far as his market value, I think we'll get a better idea in the next couple of weeks here, because in Cleveland parting ways with the John Johnson.
Mm-hmm. They are.
How many other safeties are going to lose their job? How much will that safety free agent group get diluted here in the next 2 weeks? And I don't have a great answer to that just yet. And I think guys that are currently under contract who were cut in the next couple of weeks at the safety position will help better shape that overall. But in a vacuum, I kind of view Edmunds as a $3 to $4 million a year player.
Yeah, I do too. I wrote an article today talking about, this guy should get a little bit more respect. I think the market is obviously speaks for itself, and, didn't think of Edmunds too highly last year. Interesting point about the draft class being strong last year. Lewis Seen, Kyle Hamilton, first round picks, that depressed the value for Edmunds a bit, maybe a little. I don't think the impact overall was too great this year, though. Just given it's a pretty weak safety class, could that bring up Edmunds' value a bit, especially for Pittsburgh? Yeah, I could see that. So my projection is 2 years, $6 million is to me a reasonable amount, that it gives at least the illusion of security in a multi-year deal as opposed to the 1 year deal he signed last year.
Rob Jones writes in, howdy, gents. Obviously, he would have to want to as well, but what would be the chances of doing a 2-year extension to reduce the $8 million this year and keeping, he's talking about Mitch Trubisky here, not only for this year, but for a long time. Rob, hopefully you're listening to the front end of the show. You got, it almost feels like, the first half hour of that show should please you with the conversation we had about Mitch Trubisky there.
Yeah, we'll see. But I think we're both in agreement at the least that he'll be a Steeler in 2023.
One last one from Luke writes in, nobody does a deep dive like you guys. Always such great analysis based on Steelers' historic selections and measurements. My ask is to do similar with the Eagles since Howie Roseman took over in around 2008. He says Weidl wasn't there the whole time, but might have some Roseman principles. He says, I saw out of 12 first since then, 11 have been wide receiver, offensive line, or defensive line. Would love to see a breakdown of the first 3 rounds since 2008, and only place to turn to is Steelers Depot. Look. I mean, we got to get caught up on this draft class more and just day-to-day stuff. I mean, I can guarantee that we're not going to do a deep dive into this. But how would you kind of answer his question off the cuff about Eagles and historic selections and measurements and under Howie Roseman starting at around 2008?
Yeah, just hard to know how to best value that. I mean, the Eagles have had some trends. I forget the exact ones. They haven't taken an off-ball linebacker since in the first round, since I think Jermaine Trotter, and a cornerback. They haven't taken one in forever. How much does that really factor in, given that Howie Roseman was making picks? He's the one that wanted Jalen Reagor, and Weidl wanted Justin Jefferson. We know who ended up being right and who ended up being wrong about that. What I'm more concerned about with Weidl is the man, the upbringing, the scouting mentality. So just search on Steelers Depot. You may have read this last year, but check it out again. I rely on this a lot. Is the article I wrote entitled "The Big Book of Andy Weidl," that really talked about his upbringing, his time in Pittsburgh, the mentors that he had, his own philosophy, the things that he said in the past. I think that's the most important part about Andy Weidl, about any one player or any one person, is what is their upbringing, what is their philosophy. That's going to become more valuable in predictive power than maybe what history has to say.
All right, good answer there. All right, I think we got through all the emails in here, and apologies if you thinking that this show was going to be recorded on Wednesday morning and you're waiting to send in a question. Just go ahead and send it in, and maybe we'll get to it on the Friday show. There anything else to add before we get out of here on this later? It's 9:30 out your way there, isn't it?
Yeah, you staying warm over there? It's pretty. You get the snow. I know you got a little bit of snow, but California got hammered.
I mean, yeah, one day snowing here, and next day it's like 64 outside. So it looked to be a pretty, very, very nice day out there today. So
all right, good. I'm glad.
Other than that, what's the weather like there? It's warmed up there too, hasn't it?
Getting warmer. Tomorrow's going to be really nice in the upper 60s. So that's going to be kind of cold again. That's Pittsburgh weather for you. One nice day to tease you, and then back to the high 30s, low 40s. But it's been a really mild winter. I think it's been almost like a record amount of least snow. So it's been a pretty solid winter.
All right, you and I and the rest of the crew, we got 2 guys at the Combine. Going to be a busy, busy week. Obviously, the on-the-field drills start later on in the week, and you can find all the Combine info and measurements and times all on SteelersDepot.com as you do every year at this time. Really, really exciting time. I really look forward to this. I know Alex does as well, too. So hopefully you'll join us on the site, and we'll mix in a couple of podcasts on the way on top of it. So until Friday, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button up right navigational bar, and follow the directions that way there. So until Friday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.